You would not believe the amount of times I get this question, and part of the time it just baffles me, and part of the time it honestly infuriates me. Is being blind scary? Let's do it. So, this is one of those questions that when it comes up to me is something I have to keep a few things in mind. Number one, people's concept of losing vision is inherently terrifying because the world depends on vision. Driving, reading, signage, and navigating your physical environment, and most components of social interaction are all inherently vision first. And so the concept of just waking up one day and it's gone, yeah, I don't blame people for being freaked out. But for me, I was born with the level of vision or similar to that I have now, and I don't know how to experience the world in any other way. And for someone to ask me, is that scary, is just like me saying to a sighted person, well, isn't being able to perceive the world correctly with your eyes, isn't that terrifying? Because I don't know any different. And there are things that I do in different ways that if I asked a sighted person to do them my way, that person would probably do them with some amount of trepidation and or fear. And so this is not inherently an unreasonable question, but we need to talk about specific things that come up when this conversation happens. And part of that comes from social conditioning, and part of that comes from a lack of understanding or more of an ignorance than anything else. So the social conditioning part, especially here in the United States, disability is bad, disability is scary, disability makes you less than, disability renders you incapable. That is the societal perception of disability. That's not the reality, but that is how an able-bodied person with no real-life empathetic experiences is going to likely think of disability. And on that spectrum, blindness, because vision is so central to everyday life, the concept of the possibility of losing one of your five senses, and arguably the most important of your five senses, is inherently terrifying. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I'm high and mighty because I tell people not to have fear. If that were to happen suddenly, that is scary. That is a big adjustment to make. And I know people who have had to make that adjustment and who have struggled to do so with ups and downs. Most of them have adapted extraordinarily well, but that comes with time, blood, sweat, and tears. And so on one level, right, that's not an unreasonable way to think about the prospect of suddenly going blind. However, there are more resources. There are more people willing to be open about their experiences. There is a connectedness that is an option in this community more now and more in my lifetime than there ever has been before, to the extent that there are ways to find answers to questions that previously may have gone completely unanswered, such as if I've never used a cane, if I've never read Braille, if I have never learned to, manage my household. How do I go about finding answers to these questions? There are organizations, businesses, and creators, content creators, that are all more than willing to be part of that education. And I would like to say that I include myself in this pack of people. And the reason that I'm passionate about it is a lot of people are going to experience vision loss, whether it's because of age and developing eye conditions. As humans grow older, there is an increased likelihood of things like macular degeneration and cataracts and glaucoma. Those are fairly common vision conditions that a lot of people have. And so it's not inevitable as in everyone's going to experience it, but there is a presence to it that often gets ignored. And when we're presented with it, the first thing, before even thinking about adaptation and how to live your life accordingly, the first thing that's going to be thrown at you is a cure, is a fix-it, is someone waiting to say, but we can do a simple surgery. And as someone who has been offered that with a list of conditions, for me particularly, that do not lend themselves to corrective surgeries for things like cataracts and glaucoma, I have had to process the fact that those surgeries are probably never going to be an option for me, and I'm content with that. And that's okay, but there are more resources and people and things to find in terms of looking for a way to live your life beyond vision loss now than there ever have been, and yet the first reaction is fear. The first offer is a cure. There is no acknowledgement of particularly blindness in a way that really lends itself to understanding people. And that is the first reason I think that people are scared, is that there's no place to have these tough conversations. There's no avenue, at least in their mind, that this could possibly be survivable. And so I have had people tell me in so many words that if they ever lost their vision, that they would elect to no longer be upon this earth. And that's really hard to hear, because on one hand, it's like, I'm sorry that you say that, but what are you saying about me? That I should do the same thing? And that comes from perspective. And this is where I want to talk about, again, the ignorance rather than social conditioning, because the social conditioning is that we don't talk about it. If and when we do, we talk about cures and fixing, and we talk about these miracle stories where someone's vision comes back, or a new device really helps somebody see for the first time. And it's all very emotional, but it's not real. It's not human. And so that's part one. Part two is ignorance. And this is where I have to control myself, because I have experienced in a variety of social and professional settings the unwillingness of people to ask questions, to engage, and to offer in any way to be better about how and why they have the stereotypes they do, and working on eliminating them. And that perpetuates fear as well. You know, if I'm working at a job and I'm never accommodated for, and maybe I become angry or disenfranchised in some way, and then I leave that job expressing those emotions, people might look at me and go, wow, he's just a jerk. You know, when maybe I had been trying for months to get adaptations for myself, and it just didn't happen. And so now I have this label, and people look at that and go, man, I hope I never have to be in that situation, because that's really scary, and I don't want to be like that guy. Beyond that, just the trivial questions that I'm still asked by coworkers, people on the street, about really, really basic things, stop me in my tracks, because I like to think that I'm really with it. I have had orientation mobility training and have been reading Braille since roughly the age of 4. I am relatively well adapted to my specific situation. And yet I have people constantly ask me questions like, so how do you walk? How do you eat food? I'm glad people ask, and I've talked about this in videos before, but I would rather have people ask every time than not to. But it does make me realize how many people just don't understand certain things about being blind. And what's one of the biggest fears that we have as human beings? It's fear of the unknown, and blindness is an unknown. And I think people sometimes choose to remain in the dark, pun intended, about blindness and resources because it's too scary. Or if they think about it, they have to acknowledge maybe where they've gone wrong, and they don't want to do either of those things. They don't want to engage with it, and they don't want to self-reflect. And so ignorance becomes the easiest way to not solve a problem. And I think that the perpetuation of that ignorance and the social conditioning of not wanting to confront or talk about this is really, really prevalent. And so for me, day to day, I don't wake up, pop out of bed every morning and start screaming, because I'm used to this. I've lived like this for years. And I'm sincerely hoping that whatever noise is going on in the background is fireworks. But, you know, there are things that I hope to change in time, and that other creators have already been working really hard to change, and that is having a space to ask questions and have conversations is really important. I think about YouTubers such as Molly Burke and Anthony Ferraro. Tommy Edison from back in the day had some pretty educational content. The Blind Life is another one. These are all creators that in various degrees have talked about their life story, their conditions, their ambitions, and answering questions from viewers. And I want to be myself in a very authentic way, in that I'm happy to make any kind of videos that are pertinent to topics like this. I also want to show, and I hope I have with this channel, that I'm a person. I like to take care of plants. I just got married. I'm working on creating a studio space in here that I'm really excited about. It's getting echoey in here because I am in the process of getting things out of here. I think the floor project that I really want to do is going to take a little bit longer than I would have liked because of some other housework that needs to kind of move higher on the priority list. All of that to say, I am a human person and I'm not just my disability, but so many people don't want to see that. They don't want to engage with anything deeper than a simple question. And the question has to be about my vision. It can't possibly be about my day, the weather, many other things that they could ask about if they so desired. And that's the last point I wanted to make is I think a lot of the reason for fear around blindness specifically is not enough people know a blind people and really know a person. I had a friend of mine, shout out to Derek, who said once, we were at a ball game, I think, and just having a beer, enjoying the ball game, and he said, "Hey man, like I kind of forget you're blind sometimes." And what he meant by that is we were just two friends enjoying an afternoon together, catching up on life, and I've always really, really valued that with him. He's never really been pushy about things. He's offered help when I need it, but I know Derek as a friend, as a person, and he knows me the same way. I can't say that about every friend I've ever had, and much less my coworkers and strangers in my community and things like that, where people need to take the time to understand that a blind person is a person who is blind. And if we can do that more, if we can sit down and come to the table and have conversations about, I'm fine to talk about my blindness here and there, but I also maybe want to talk about the twins. I want to talk about the vacation I'm working on saving up for, my new job. I want to talk about life as a human being, and you do too. There's no reason we can't do that. So I hope this helps answer the question about, is being blind scary? Because for me, it is not. It's the way I live, and I hope that this video sheds some light on it. If you have any questions, comments, queries, theories, concerns, or anything else, I'm happy to answer those in the comment section down below. With all that said, we'll talk to you soon. Peace.